Well, throughout the course of the COVID pandemic, parent and child advocates warned of the consequences school shutdowns would have on children. Unfortunately, new scores released by the National Assessment of Educational Progress, also known as the nation's report card, are proving those concerns to be true. According to the data, the average math and reading scores for students at the age of 9 declined substantially from 2020 to 2022, with third grade math scores dropping 5 points and reading scores dropping 7 points. And just for context here, that's the largest drop in 3 decades. And Republicans are now blaming Democrats for kowtowing to teachers' unions who pressured the CDC to keep schools closed much longer than they were needed and for putting unions ahead of students. Joining us with reaction and to discuss is Distinguished Senior Fellow at the Texas Public Policy Foundation and retired professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University, Dr. Carol Swain. Dr. Swain, it's always good to have you. Thanks for being here. All right, so we can point fingers all day long, and I do think that somebody should take responsibility for this. But at the end of the day, how can this be fixed? Because now we have this issue with students being way behind.
Well, it's not going to be fixed by the Democrats because they helped create the problem. And it's not just the lockdowns, but it's also the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, CRT, indoctrination that is taken away from academic learning. When children are being politicized and teachers are being forced to teach curricula that they don't agree with, then you're going to get bad results. Think about math. They pushed ethno-mathematics. They argued that math was racist, that minority children could get different answers than white children. What would you expect?
I want to play a clip of Biden's Education Secretary Miguel Cardona talking about the teachers union bosses. Listen to this.
So I'm going to give a shout out to Becky and Randy, who from the beginning have been intentional partners, intentional collaborators, speaking for you, lifting up concerns, lifting up voices. But this intentional collaboration is something that we want to continue moving forward.
All right, so we saw them collaborating through these shutdowns. I mean, you talk about them politicizing our education. How did these teachers unions become so liberal, so politically motivated? I mean, have they always been like this? Because it seems intensified in the last few years.
They've not always been that way. I have a former colleague that has taught for she knows all about education, and she said it started changing in the 1970s. It was eventually taken over by activists, and so they have a woke agenda. And we know that schools of ed, teachers' educational programs across the country have been indoctrinated with the left-wing Marxism, the Marxist concepts that have worked their way into our classroom. And you look at social-emotional learning, when they focus on introducing our children to pornography, transgenderism, CRT disguised as civil rights, they're taken away from academic learning time, and they're also creating distress among our children. And if you look at our children, their suicide rate, it's skyrocketed with the number of children under 12 who are taking their own lives. What is causing that? And I think it's being caused by the fact that our schools are no longer safe places, that we have the wrong people in charge.
Tragic. Do you think that teachers' unions should be dismantled?
I certainly do, because I don't think they serve any useful purpose. I think education belongs at the state level, and that the Department of Education needs to be abolished. We don't need it. And I believe that would be a great first step in improving education across our nation.
I don't have a lot of time left, Dr. Swain, but we had Betsy DeVos, former education secretary, come out and say, quote another teacher from Columbia and say, this could take kids who are 9 to make up the deficit by the time they're in college. Do you agree that it's going to take that long, or can this problem be fixed shorter? Only 30 seconds.
It just depends on the child, because if they're in a family that's focused on education, they're going to work with their children, they have the resources, they might be able to make up the gap. But we know at the college level, we have a lot of people there who shouldn't be there, that are not qualified to be in college. So it doesn't look good for America in its competition with the world.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Dr. Carol Swain, it's always good to see you. Thank you for being
Thank
here. We
you.
have to prioritize our students' education, the future of America we're talking about. Thanks for being with us on a Labor Day weekend.
Thank you.